How could we possibly force Biden out of the race? We're always being told that there just aren't enough of us to matter. Of course, the Democrats tell us that. They want to keep us down. If you watch MSNBC, you might get the impression that the Democratic electorate consists of 50% white, college-educated suburban voters, 49% anti-Trump Republicans, and 1% Bernie supporters, and maybe a few black people. Of course, there are enough of us to be blamed when Democrats lose elections, and there were enough of us in January and February to scare the crap out of the Democratic establishment and bring about the coalescence, and a robust majority of Democratic voters actually favor the agenda of the left. But other than that, there aren't enough of us to matter. Sadly, this same narrative that we just don't have the numbers to affect the outcome of an election is also being pushed by the left-wing media. But rather than dealing in speculation, let's look at some actual numbers. We do have some sense of how many of us there are because we voted in primaries and caucuses this year. Of course, turnout was skewed from mid-March onward because of the pandemic, but a lot of the swing states had already voted before that. What I see from the numbers is that Bernie's totals in most states, even in states he lost, far exceed the margin of victory from 4 years ago. But what does that mean? Let's take a look at New Hampshire. In the general election in 2016, Hillary Clinton won by a very narrow margin. It didn't get a lot of coverage, I guess because she won, but her margin of victory was less than 0.4%, or 2,700 votes. That's not a lot of votes. Bernie actually campaigned there for Hillary 7 times, which I'm sure she has no recollection of. In the New Hampshire primary, held on February 20th of this year, Bernie Sanders received over 76,000 votes. That's a much bigger number than 2,700. Are there people in that group who would be perfectly willing to vote for Biden in the general election? I'm sure there are. Are there also a lot of Bernie supporters who would prefer not to and are waiting for someone to make that decision for the group? I think so. You might also argue that New Hampshire only has 4 electoral college votes. Fair point. Although Bernie did basically move there to campaign for Hillary full-time 4 years ago, so someone thought that state was important. But we'll take a look at some states that have more people. How about Nevada? Now, I always thought that Nevada was just a blue state, but it turns out that it's been going back and forth for years. Obama won it twice, but it is a state where the Democrat would have to make some effort to win. Bernie campaigned there for Hillary twice in 2016. She eked out the win, but her margin of victory was only 1.5%, or 27,000 votes. Let me put that another way. In a state where over 1 million votes were cast, Hillary's margin of victory was 27,000 votes. Nevada had its caucuses this year on February 25th. Bernie delivered a thrashing to the rest of the field. I'm sure you remember MSNBC's infamous meltdown. Chris Jansing was doing a live report and she gave that big sigh. Chris Matthews likened the occasion to the Nazi invasion of France and got fired. Those were the salad days, weren't they? Now, turnout for caucuses is notoriously low. They also vote twice, which is weird. Doesn't seem very democratic. But Bernie's vote totals were 35,000 in the first vote and 41,000 in the second vote. Those are both more than 27,000. And I'm going to take a guess that there are actually more Bernie supporters in Nevada who did not participate in the caucuses. So it looks to me like it's not going to be Joe Biden's decision whether he wins the state of Nevada. Bernie supporters will make that decision for him. Let's take a look at Florida. Elections are always so close there. Sometimes the presidency itself is decided in Florida, or at least it was that one time 20 years ago. Trump won Florida 4 years ago by 1.2%, or just under 113,000 votes. Okay, let's face it, Bernie's not the most popular person there because of the Castro stuff and all the old people. Also, Florida's primary this year was in that first round of ghost primaries on March 17th. Nevertheless, Bernie received 397,000 votes. That's what Biden would have to overcome, plus the deficit you could say he was already running because Trump was starting out ahead. And this is Florida. Every vote counts, if it's counted. Forget about 20 years ago. Wasn't there funny business in Florida 2 years ago? All the big races were razor thin and won by Republicans. And now our final state, Michigan, the state of states. Hillary Clinton, of course, infamously lost Michigan 4 years ago by 23/100ths of a point, or 10,704 votes. In this year's primary, Bernie got blown out. He lost by over 16%. Even so, he received 576,926 votes. Joe Biden has no control over whether he wins Michigan. All those suburban people who've been wringing their hands because Trump is so bad, there's nothing they can do about Michigan. If Bernie supporters don't want Biden to win Michigan, he's not going to win. So what would really happen if we all just didn't vote for Biden? Could we actually cause him to lose? I say yes. Not every state in the union, but certainly all the states that were close 4 years ago: New Hampshire, Nevada, Florida, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Maine, Arizona, and North Carolina. We'll even throw in defeats for Biden in Georgia and Texas. If all the swing states where Biden has been polling ahead suddenly become toss-ups again because Bernie supporters let it be known that they're not voting for Biden, that's going to stretch Biden's campaign thin. I don't think he's got much of a ground game, as they call it. He didn't have much campaign infrastructure in the primaries. No one's enthusiastic about voting for him. Who would want to canvass for him or make phone calls? And do remember, Joe Biden is not mentally capable of campaigning. What's he going to do if a bunch of states are suddenly in play again? Send Bernie all over the country to clean up the mess? We don't take orders from Bernie anymore. He's a Biden supporter.